Hello everybody, this is your English teacher and this is my lesson about Jane Eyre, the novel written by Charlotte Bronte. Well, now, this novel, differently from Wuthering Heights written by Emily Bronte, was an immediate success. The book was published in 1847 in London, and as you can see from its front page, there is no trace of the real name of its author, because we have a male pseudonym, Currer Bell, the male pseudonym of Charlotte Bronte, always with the same initials, just as it had already happened with Emily Bronte and her publication of Wuthering Heights. But differently from Wuthering Heights, this novel, Jane Eyre, became a commercial success quite immediately. Nevertheless, some critics didn't like the book so much and condemned it mainly for two reasons. The first reason was because it was full of open descriptions of passion, rebellion, strong feelings, and we know that Victorian readers didn't accept that very much, especially if there were male readers. And also, it was criticized for its being unchristian, because there are some attacks against certain aspects of religion and the church in England. Now, this novel, actually, you can see here there are different covers taken from different editions of the book. This novel is quite a complicated novel if we want to decide which genre it belongs to, because actually in this novel many different genres are represented. As a matter of fact, Jane Eyre is an ingenious mixture of fictional autobiography, Bildungsroman. You should know this expression. Bildungsroman is the novel of formation, just like Oliver Twist and David Copperfield. It's also a love story, and it has some elements of a Gothic novel. As a consequence, there is no mystery about the fact that it was a success, because this novel appealed and satisfied quite all kinds of Victorian readers, because there were so many themes in them. The plot, differently from Wuthering Heights, is quite simple. The novel, in fact, tells the story of Jane Eyre. It's a beautiful surname, isn't it? Eyre, like the air. Jane Eyre is an orphan. At the beginning of the story, we believe that she is a poor orphan brought up by a rich family. But then the story will reveal some surprises. Anyway, at the beginning of the story, Jane Eyre is an orphan. She has no father, no mother, and has to face lots of adversities. But all of these adversities make her stronger. She becomes a very strong girl until she eventually reaches self-realization and happiness. This will happen only at the end of the novel. The novel can be divided into three sections. In the first sections, so the first chapters, we can see Jane Eyre as a child. Here you have two different pictures taken from the many different versions, cinema versions of the novel. So, in the first section of the book, we can follow Jane in her childhood, education in a very strict and cold school called the Lowood School, and the many incidents, the many things which bring her into contact with some figures that are going to be important for her growth. The second section is maybe the richest in contents, because here we see Jane, who is 18 years old and who has left the school and has become a governess, a kind of a private teacher at Thornfield Hall. Thornfield Hall is a mansion on the moors, once again, whose master, Mr. Rochester, she meets and falls in love with, or better to say, they fall in love with one another. And so she agrees to marry this man, who who is very fascinating, a kind of Byronic hero, just like Heathcliff, but a little less wild, I should say. But when they are about to get married, she finds out that Mr. Rochester has already got a wife, and this wife is a lunatic woman, a crazy woman. She's crazy. And her name is Bertha Mason. And this woman is kept locked in a room in an isolated part of the mansion. That is where the Gothic elements come from. And so when Jane discovers that Mr. Rochester has already got a wife, decides to go away to escape. She flees from the place. Here you have other two pictures. You have here Michael Fassbender, one of my favorite actors, playing the role of Mr. Rochester, and here is Bertha Mason. So you see a lunatic woman. In the third and last part of the novel, we can see Jane living her life far from Mr. Rochester. She finds another job as a teacher in an isolated village on the moors. She meets other people who will be very important in her life. She discovers something about her past, but eventually she comes back home to Mr. Rochester. I won't tell you all that happens because I'm inviting you to read the novel. In this moment I'm reading that novel again, and it's wonderful. But I can tell you that there will be a happy ending, and the two will get married eventually. But there are lots of things that I want to tell you. You will have to discover them yourselves. What about the style? The style used by Charlotte Bronte. The novel is written in the first person, is like an autobiography, so actually it is Jane speaking and telling her story. So all the story is told from the point of view of Jane. And she often directly addresses the reader, so sometimes she speaks to you, the reader, because this was part of the convention of autobiography. Events are reported in retrospect, as if they were memories, souvenirs coming from the past. And this makes the narrator seem omniscient. Well, actually, Jane knows all the story, because everything has already happened. But she presents the story as if she didn't know what would happen after. And so suspense is not missing. We still have some suspense because the facts are not revealed until the point when Jane herself becomes aware of the information. Now, this is Charlotte Gainsbourg, a French actress who has played the role of Jane Eyre in some years ago, and we can consider Jane Eyre as an unconventional heroine. Why unconventional? Let's have a look. Of course, love and passion are two major points in this novel, and they actually keep the plot together and they lead to a happy marriage. But they are far from being dealt with traditionally, so love and passion are not described traditionally. Moreover, this time, strange enough, marriage doesn't seem to be the main objective, the main aim to be achieved by Jane. So she doesn't have the intention of finding a husband. You remember, like for example, Catherine in Wuthering Heights. This is not her intention, at least not at the beginning. In fact, Charlotte Bronte offers us a very unconventional heroine, unconventional if we consider the period in which the novel was published. Because Jane Eyre is not beautiful, is not rich, and she's not particularly interested in marriage, so she doesn't have the typical characteristics of a Victorian girl, or also a pre-Victorian girl. Nevertheless, she is very intelligent. She has lots of good qualities. She is honest. She is passionate. She is self-confident. And she also has a very good education that she had received at school. She knows how to speak, how to express herself. And this is very, very important, girls, to know how to express yourselves. And has an unshakable system of values, which keep her strong. So she really believes in some things which are so important to her and that really keep her strong. She wants to be economically independent. Strange, isn't it? That is why she finds a job as a governess as soon as she leaves school, when she's just 18 years old, which was the typical age to find a husband. But we have said that she was interested in finding a husband. She wanted to be independent. So, I have considered Jane Eyre as a proto-suffragette. You know, the suffragettes were feminists, the first example of feminists in Europe. And, of course, they are not yet there in England. We will still have to wait a few years. But Jane Eyre is a kind of anticipation of a suffragette. So that is why what maybe have really astonished Victorian readers was Jane's unwavering belief, uncontrollable, unshakable belief that men and women are created equal. This is a completely new concept. According to Jane Eyre, men and women are equal in front of God and in front of other men, regardless of their age, economical condition, level of education, or occupation. As a consequence, throughout the novel, Jane demands to be treated as an independent human being, an individual with her own will, with her own desires and needs and talents. A girl who looks for self-realization. She wants to find herself. She wants to express herself fully. And she will not accept any compromise, however tempting it might be. Should this mean to deny herself? She doesn't want to deny herself, her real self. She's ready to fight and to refuse any kind of compromise if this means to lose herself. So, can't you see? She was a really tough girl, no doubt. Okay, guys, so I hope you have liked and understood this lesson. And see you soon. Okay, bye-bye. Take care.